going to get started in just a minute. So for those of you who've never hosted a LinkedIn Live before, it's about a 90-second delay. It might be a 60-second, but it's somewhere around there delay from us speaking and when it shows up. So it's kind of live. It's live, but less a minute. And so it's always interesting because I'm saying we're going to start in a minute. But by the time you hear me say that, it'll be the future and I'll have already started. So little did people know that we could put them in the future, Jen. That's how good we are.
I knew we were effective, but wow, that's
We are
amazing.
that effective. Okay, we are at 12 o'clock my time, so I am going to get us started, and at 12:01, I'm sure you'll see it. And now all of this is going to seem that much funnier. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Melissa Maloney, and my partner in crime is here. Jen, you want to say hi to the people?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Slay. Welcome. Glad you're here.
We are getting towards the end of our double take series that we've been doing here on LinkedIn. We've got today's and then 2 more sessions in the works. So we are super excited to be doing today's double take. You're stuck with me today. Jen's gonna hide around in the background, and she will answer any questions as they come up, or at least make sure I see them. So we've been really intentional about the order that we did the sessions in, because we really wanted to sort of give them to you in succession, shall you say. So over the past few weeks, we've focused on setting clear expectations, having good processes around those expectations, creating psychological safety, increasing your own confidence, as sort of a strategy to get to this point where we can now start to talk about the big scary word of accountability. So we've done all of that, because the hope is that we've kind of built a space now where your team knows how to win, right? And they're not really guessing. And if we've gotten to that space, then that puts us in a position where we can start to have these accountability conversations because they're not working in the dark anymore, right? Like they have the roadmap, they know where on the road we are, right? And so it helps to put us in a good position. Now, this is the part that some leaders dread, though. Accountability is sometimes that thing that brings a lot of fear and anxiety inside of us. But I really want to shift our perspective on accountability today so that we're not approaching it with the mindset that it's micromanaging, because that's not what it is. It's not about yelling, right? It's not even about confrontation, which is another yucky word. At its best, I'd like us to look at accountability as alignment. Okay. So it's about making sure that what we said we were going to do as leaders and as team members, is actually going to get done. And that we all are working on the things that we agreed to do. So if you think about sort of that old school approach to leadership, accountability was often sort of rooted in fear, right? Similar to old school ways of selling, it was rooted in sort of in fear in a lot of ways as well. But we want to do the work. It was like old school was do the work or face the consequences. I actually worked for an organization where we used to have people do monthly goal setting. And in that monthly goal setting, we would have them choose their consequences for the month. Like that was actually language that we used. The newer philosophy, the one that I'm going to say is a little bit more effective, sees accountability as a partnership, right? Where we're not standing over somebody, like standing over them and making sure they do what they say they're going to do. It's more about making sure we're all moving in the same direction that we've agreed to and working together if the car goes off course, let's just say. So what we're going to explore today is what it means to hold people accountable, how that can strengthen our relationships, not actually weaken them, and the fact that we can actually do both things. So let's get started. So gut check to start us off. Now that we're here, we're engaged. I want you to think about if I were to say to you, I need you to hold so and so accountable. Okay, so if I were to say, Jen, I need you to hold Melissa accountable, right? What's the feeling that pops up for you? So go ahead, drop a word in the chat. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's frustration, maybe it's fear, maybe it's motivation, maybe it's something else completely and entirely. But drop the word in the chat that when you hear, I need you to hold someone accountable, what does your belly say? I'll give you a sec. Okay. So, for a lot of people, that word accountability still sort of has that old school baggage that we talked about right at the start, where it really feels like, I'm getting sent to the principal's office and I'm in trouble. But what we want to do is we want to shift that thinking again. Looking at it from the perspective of if we've done the steps, right? We have good processes that help set people up for success. We've given people clear expectations and we've created an alignment in terms of who's responsible for what. Accountability can feel supportive. It doesn't need to feel icky. Okay. So it's not about catching someone doing something wrong. It is about making sure they have what they need to keep doing the things that will make them be right. So that's the version of accountability that we're working towards today. It's not about not holding people accountable. It's about holding people accountable in the right way. So we should rename it in our heads if we need to, either to, I like alignment. I think alignment kind of fits, but maybe it's partnership, maybe it's ownership, right? Like we want to put some autonomy and some responsibility onto the other person, not just onto ourselves. So, why does accountability matter? This is a big question. So it's not about blame. It is about helping people succeed and aligning the team as well around shared goals. Okay. So when it's done well, it actually should reduce tension within the team. It should increase team connection and morale, and it should build trust. Okay. So when we think about this and why all of this happens, let's think first about that accountability, building trust and respect. Okay. So when people see that commitments are followed through on and followed up on, so followed up on by leader, followed through on by team members, and that standards are upheld, they know they can count on you as a leader, but they also know they can count on their team. So, as a leader, consistency in that follow up really does build credibility. And for team members, it creates a sense of fairness, right? So, everyone is playing by the same rules, and that creates a safer environment as well as a more respectful environment. And if there's one thing that we do know, and I think I talk about this a little bit later, is that what happens with performers, especially top performers. Top performers don't do well in inconsistently managed environments. Top performers will be the first to notice underperformance. Okay. So the second is it does promote personal growth and ownership. So when we hold people accountable, when we're actually driving their performance, we're giving them a chance to step up to their potential. We're saying, I believe you can do this, right? We're not saying, I want you to fail. We're saying, I believe you can do this. And I am here as your partner to help you get there. And that kind of approach really does encourage initiative, right? It gets people starting to take responsibility for the things that they're doing, not because they are afraid of consequences, but because they're proud of the work and they want to actually own high standards and give more and go over and above. And third, it prevents resentment and burnout. So without accountability, that's when workloads start to get lopsided. Okay. So high performers tend to pick up slack because they want the team to win on top of themselves, right? And over time, that leads to frustration, exhaustion, all of those things. So accountability helps to distribute effort fairly, so that no one feels like they're being taken advantage of. And when people know that their contributions matter, right? When they know that what I do makes a difference, then and that their workload is respected, then that is where they're far more likely to stay engaged and motivated. If we use a silly thing like time, right? I've worked for different organizations where there was a really strong value and expectations that meetings started and ended on time. I'm big on meetings ending on time. And so with that, there's an accountability to that. There's an accountability to the team that if I'm the one hosting the meeting, I want that meeting to start on time and end on time. So your responsibility is show up on time for that meeting. My responsibility is to respect your time and make sure it ends on time. And there is accountability in that and joint accountability in that. And that level of accountability helps to build trust. Small thing, but by showing that I commit to being on time and I commit to ending on time, it's showing that I do what I say I'm going to do and I respect your boundaries around time. So, this is one of the reasons why accountability matters. It's really not about performance. You will notice we have not spoken at all about performance at this point. We've really just been speaking about the mindset around it. So, what it is about is creating high functioning, healthy team environments where people actually want to be a part of them and want to contribute their best level of work. So, that first takeaway is accountability is caring. So clear is kind, unclear is unkind. This is Brene Brown. It's one of my favorites from her. So when we talk about accountability, this is the heart of it. So clarity isn't about being harsh, it's about being fair. And it's about building a culture where people know exactly what's expected of them and feel safe enough to speak up when something's not working. So that's it's ultimately what's called a culture of candor, right? Like I get to speak openly and honestly. It's an environment where honesty isn't punished, where asking for help is not seen as a weakness, and where feedback is normal. Okay. A healthy part of how a team operates should involve, right? All of those things honesty, not being punished, help isn't seen as a weakness, and feedback is normal. Okay. So nobody, and you'll hear me say this a lot, nobody wakes up in the morning saying, I'm going to suck today or I want to fail today. It's not what people do. It is not general human behavior, right? So most performance issues are not about bad intentions. They're typically missing skills, unclear priorities, or unseen obstacles. So missing skills, almost always the gap, unclear priorities, or unseen obstacles. And I'm going to give you a really neat example of that in a sec. So, what is the challenge with that? The challenge with this is that tells us that many people are actually more willing and more comfortable failing quietly than actually admitting they need help with something and that they don't know how to do it. So a Stanford study has found that people regularly underestimate how willing others are to help them. Like they don't actually think people will help. And in the workplace, fear of looking incompetent keeps far too many people from saying, I'm stuck, I need help. Okay. So as leaders, this is our opportunity and our responsibility so that we can normalize asking questions and we can respond to requests for help with curiosity, not judgment. We can do all of this. We need to call out transparency in order to make this happen, and show that it's safe to ask for help and to speak up, and that that's actually a good thing. Because when we do that, accountability stops being about blame, it becomes about alignment. It starts to become about people in the game, setting them up to succeed, and helping to make it possible for them to do their best possible work without burning out. So, takeaway number one, accountability is caring. So, let's look a little bit at emotional intelligence and accountability and three of the key drivers that connect that emotional intelligence to accountability specifically. So, if building a culture of candor, right, getting to that place where honesty and transparency is the goal, emotional intelligence is how we do it. So, we can't just say my door is always open. It's a lovely thing to say and expect people to just walk on through that door because that's not how it works. We have to actually show up in a way that makes it safe and productive for them to do so. So this is where that self-awareness piece comes in. So before we can step into accountability conversations, we have to check with ourselves. What's my emotional state, right? Am I frustrated? Am I rushed? A lot of things go wrong when we're in a hurry. Or am I distracted? Also, when a lot of things go wrong. If I'm not aware of sort of my own emotions, where I'm starting from in this conversation, I do take a big risk in making the conversation about me instead of the outcome. Okay. So regulating my own emotions is really, really key because it helps me to be calm. It helps me to be present. It helps me focus on facts, not stories, which you hear us talk a lot about at AWL. And that's what keeps the other person open instead of defensive. And our goal is always to keep dialogue moving. The second piece is empathy. Okay. So this is where we slow down enough that we can actually understand the other person's perspective. So it's not an excuse for poor performance. We're not saying we excuse it. We're trying to understand why. Because again, people don't get up to fail. And I am the first person to say there are some people that just shouldn't do some jobs because the why is it's actually just not the right job fit for them. Okay. They don't have the natural competencies in order to do it. But most of the time, we're looking at questions like, is there a barrier that they're facing? Did they interpret the instructions differently than how I intended them? When people feel heard and they're far more willing to actually hear us in return and engage in that dialogue. And so we also want to consider structural barriers or structural tools that may be leading to them failing. So I want to tell you a really funny story to sort of give you an example of that. Um, so in my previous work world, we used to give a book out every time somebody came to visit us. So they'd come in to get information on being a member with us, and we would give them a book. And the expectation was that we would give a book out with every single person who came in. And we mathematically knew that wasn't happening because we knew how many people had come in based on information that was entered into our CRM. And we knew how many books we'd bought based on sales. And we could tell there was a big gap. So we'd been talking, give out the book, give out the book, give out the book, give out the book. Well, one day I, as at that point was a regional manager, and I was working in one of the locations for the day. They were short staffed, so I was actually helping to work with guests. And fast forward to the end of the day, I had met with 8 guests that day. Guess how many books I gave out? I'd been lecturing about these books for months. Guess how many I gave out? I don't know if you're actually putting guesses in because I can't see it, but I gave out 0 books. 0 books. And I went, huh. And then what we realized was the process was person would come in at the front desk, we would sit them down at a table. The books were in an office. So in order for me to get the book, I had to walk into the office, get the book, and then go back to the table. That's a whole process in there that was not setting me up for success because I had to remember to do that. It wasn't natural. There was no reason for me to go in the office. Like it was a silly process. Um, so once we identified that that was the gap, we moved the books to the front desk so that when people actually came into the building, we would have the books right in front of us and we could give them the book right away. And then miraculously, we started to give out more books. So that's what I would call a structural barrier, right? But if we hadn't approached that situation with a level of curiosity and a willingness to try and understand why is this happening, and just scolded people and said, "You're not giving out the books," like I would have been essentially scolding myself. Okay, so we want to look at some of those things. And this is why, sort of, that whole idea of process, expectation, accountability flows in a certain order. So the third thing is relationship management. So this is the art of actually delivering feedback in a way that inspires people, doesn't pull them down. Okay, so it's the difference between somebody walking away feeling as if they are a terrible human versus walking away with a really clear plan and belief that they can get it right. So sometimes that means that we're starting with what's working well. Other times it might mean being really direct, but it's also reinforcing that you believe that they can succeed. I am not a believer in the sandwich effect. I don't think it's effective feedback giving. I think that we owe it to people to be honest with them and not need to sandwich that information between 2 positives to make that one negative not seem quite as negative. I think we just need to actually have good relationships where people understand it's coming from the heart. People should never be surprised at a performance review for feedback that they've not been given in the last 12 months. So feedback is something that should be given often. It should be, we need to create cultures where people are open to it and used to receiving it. So when I was very lucky early in my career, I had a leader say to me, feedback is feedback. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's information. And I took that to heart very early in my career, and I've continued to kind of work that way, where it's information. We make feedback positive or negative, and we definitely do it if we're sandwiching it. It is information. Here's the information. Okay. And so when we take the emotion out of it, amazing things happen with feedback. So when we as leaders show up self aware, with empathy and considering relationships, that's when accountability stops feeling like punishment and starts to actually feel like my goal in this as a leader is to help you rise to the occasion and be your best self. So, leads us to our second takeaway, which is accountability fosters growth. So, we've gotten to the point now, hopefully, where we're all in agreement that accountability is not bad. If we want people to succeed, we need to help them create strategies that help them win. That is not about micromanaging. That is about, it's not about being the bad guy. It is truly about leading. Leadership sets people up to win. So when we approach accountability with sort of a growth lens, we're saying, I see your potential, right? I am here to help you make sure that you reach it. That's what we're saying with that lens. And that is coaching. And versus accountability is, if we look at it as a tough conversation, that's where the yuckiness starts. We want to really look at it as accountability. So in a couple weeks, we're going to actually spend time talking about those hard conversations, the difficult conversations, confrontation, all of those things in detail. But this is different, right? This isn't, I'm not terminating you. I'm not doing any of those things in this. In this, I'm making sure you understand what I need from you in order for you to stay. I'm making sure you understand the expectations for you to perform. And that's very different than having sort of one of those tough conversations and confronting people on the fact that they're no longer, they aren't performing or they are off the team. Okay. So one of the best ways that we help to make this accountability is using some of the solutions focused coaching principles. So some questions to sort of jot down, and I will say them twice, and this will obviously replay, is what does success look like for you? Okay, so what does success look like for you? What's one step that you can take to move toward that today? What is one step that you can take to move a step closer to that today? And what resources or support do you need to help you get there faster? What resources or support do you need to help you get there faster? This approach helps to keep things energy, right? It's moving energy forward. We're forward looking. It's effective. It makes me believe that I'm trying to get somewhere, but it also reinforces ownership because it's not you solving it, it's you asking them for their opinion and they're involved in the decision. And the person therefore is walking away knowing that knowing what they need to do and that they were part of creating the plan. It's not your plan, it's their plan. And when accountability is about growth and strategy and not about fault finding, right, then that's where it stops being about fear in that same way and starts to be something that people actually value and want to be a part of. So, our 3-step process to help us with this is connect on the why, clarify the gap, and coach to action. So, when we handle accountability well, it's not confrontation. We've said this, it's coaching. So, again, we're going to those tough conversations in a couple weeks, but today we're just talking about getting people to perform. So, one of my favorite ways to think about this is if we kind of draw on some of the best. So, Ken Blanchard, Simon Sinek, and Patrick Lencioni, we can kind of steal some of their besties to turn into the connect, clarify, and coach. So when we connect on the why, Simon Sinek, right? We start with purpose. We revisit why the work matters to the team, to the organization, to them personally. And this creates that emotional buy-in that I get it. I want to do it for me. And if people understand the why, then they're more motivated to actually follow through and less likely to see accountability and criticism. Okay. Step 2, clarify the gap. So to define the difference between where things are now, where they need to be, right? There's a gap. This is where they are right now. This is where they need to be. That space in the middle is the gap. We want to make it clear. We want to make it specific. We want to make it behavior focused, not personality focused. It's not about you, it's about the stuff that you are doing. Okay. This is where you can create psychological safety. You're addressing the situation, not attacking the person. Not about you, it's about the work. Okay. And the third one is to coach to action, which is work together to identify the next step forward. So ask what support they need, agree on what success will look like for them, decide how you'll check in. The shifts in this conversation, it moves it right from the you messed up to we're moving forward together, which is what we're trying to do here. It's not about blame. It's not about you messed up. It's never about those things. Unproductive, waste of energy. Okay. Taylor Swift has told all of us this week about managing our energy. So we're moving it forward together. When we follow that connect, clarify, coach, accountability actually becomes that positive force as opposed to a negative thing. It really helps to focus on that alignment, like we said right at the start. It focuses on support and it focuses on growth. So that is when people not only meet expectations, but hopefully start to exceed them. So let's look at example of this in real life. So the example is, so let's just say we have a team member who has missed getting a report in on time. Okay, team member, report not in on time. Connect on the why. So what does that look like? So that would be, hey, Alex, before we jump into the specifics, I want to talk about why the reports are important. They give our leadership team the information that they need to make quick decisions. And when they're delayed, it can slow down progress for the whole group. I know you care about the team's success, and I want to make sure that we're set up to keep things moving smoothly. Alex isn't in trouble. Alex, we're talking about why these are important because maybe Alex didn't know. Okay. Step 2, we're going to clarify the gap. This is the second time that the report has come in after deadline. Last week it was a day late. This week it came 2 days late. The expectation is that it is submitted by 3 every Friday. So the gap here is consistency in hitting that deadline. You'll notice that was all facts. It was 1 day late, then it was 2 days late. It's due Friday at 3. The gap is consistency in the deadline. It's not Alex. Alex is not the gap. The gap is missing the deadline. Okay. So fact-based, behavior-based, no judgment. That is our clarify. Coach, what's getting in the way of meeting this deadline? Is there a step in your process that's slowing things down or something competing for your time at the end of the week? Let's figure out what we need to do so that you can submit on time. Maybe we can shift the prep work earlier, remove a bottleneck, or get you some kind of support. What do you think the next step should be, and how can I help make this happen? Obviously, that would be more conversational in real life. Okay. So that is our coach to action. So that leads us to our final takeaway. So accountability doesn't just impact performance, it shapes culture. So when we have supportive systems in place and open dialogue in place and all those things, we build trust, not fear. People know the rules of the game. They know what winning looks like. They know how to win, and they know that your goal is to help them get there. That's the kind of culture that people can actually lean into and take ownership of and do their best work. Okay. So if we think back to the earlier sessions that we've done in this LinkedIn Live series, we've already talked about setting up the processes on purpose. We've talked about setting up clear expectations. Those are the foundations. If you've done that well, you actually set people up for success. So that next step is helping them. Okay. So people cannot win without feedback. They need feedback to know that they're doing things the right way. We need feedback in physical activity. If we're training for a 5K, we need feedback along the way, or else we're going to give up. We're going to stop. Okay. If people are missing the mark and we don't say anything, we're actually not sparing their feelings. We're robbing them of that chance to actually improve. Okay. When we hold people accountable, we are in a supportive way. We're actually saying to them, I believe in you. I want you to succeed. It's all about consistency. So if we hold someone accountable consistently, then that helps to ensure that there's no confusion and it doesn't break trust. If we're inconsistent, that's where broken trust starts to come in. And then it starts to tell the team that sometimes things matter, sometimes things don't. And that's where it starts to get icky again. So we really want to create consistency amongst all of these things because that will help create a culture where people know what to expect. All of that to say, we've got 2 more sessions. Thank you. If you have any questions or anything on accountability, definitely reach out, even if it's after the live is done. Our next double takes, we have 2 more coming up. So next week, August 26th, we are doing manifestation with intention. So we are moving from vision to action. Jen will take you through that. And then on September 2nd, we are talking about conflict. We are going to face it, not fear it. We're going to have those tough conversations. We're going to deal with the conflict. Okay. And the last thing that we wanted to just cover off is some of the things that we have. So AWL Partners is here to help support you in all of these things. So we do one-to-one emotional intelligence assessments. We also do DISC assessments. We have coaching. We have counseling. We have our Actually I Can Leadership Hub, where there's a whole bunch of tools and resources. And we have masterminds. We are offering this week for anybody who is facing a challenge. Maybe today brought up something of an employee that you're really struggling with, don't know how to have that coaching conversation, whatever it is. Jen and I are offering free coaching sessions to anybody who emails within a week of this session. Today is, I don't know what the date is today. It's August 19th. So because this is recorded and it will be online. August 19th, if you email us within a week of August 19th, which I think takes us to the 26th, we will give away with something that you're looking to solve. Okay, we will give you a free 30-minute session valued at $99 to help you leave with. You come in with something that's challenging you, we'll give you a solution. You'll leave with at least one action that you can implement to hopefully move those things forward. If you're interested in participating in this, it is hello@awlpartners.com. And we're here to support in any way. But we'd love to connect outside of here. Definitely reach out to us. Share this along to anybody who's been struggling with accountability. And we will be back next week. Thank you, everybody, and have an absolutely amazing day. Bye bye.